you can offer your building to the appropriate service. Thereby you can make modifications and analyze the impact on energy efficiency and then evaluate alternatives. How do you gain access to Green Building Studio? You'll need an account. You'll need to register, subsequently log in, and then download the Green Building Studio desktop client. So I'm going to try and give you a live demonstration this afternoon. So I'll show you how that's all done. So I mentioned about GBxml. So what is GBxml? It's schema. It's basically the de facto industry standard used to facilitate the transfer of building information from BIM models to a wide variety of analysis tools, thereby saving the tedious recreation of building elements. So you create your conceptual design in either AutoCAD Architecture, AutoCAD MEP, Revit Architecture, Revit MEP, etc., as I previously expressed. Then you can convert it over into GBxml, and then you upload the GBxml file to the Green Building Studio software itself. So, okay, so how do we actually go about doing that? So what I'll do is to show you firstly how we can export via GBxml, firstly within AutoCAD Architecture, and then I'll give you a live demo of how we do the same in Revit. So let's just close this down. Okay. So how do we go about exporting a GBxml from within either AutoCAD Architecture or AutoCAD MEP? So first of all, we have in Architecture or MEP, we place down spaces. So these are available to you on the Analysis tab. We combine spaces into zones. So we select the little plus button, select the appropriate space, and that combines it into the zone. Okay, and then we ask to export to GBxml file format. So as you can see, you can specify the location where you'd like to store the file. You're then invited to select the objects. This is, you pick on the zone. So what type of building is it? This will have an impact on the analysis, of course. So you can pick the appropriate type of building. Enter in your postcode and then start. And initially, unless there's a step that you perform before you create the GBxml file, you might well get this error. No space type specified. So this is easy to miss. So to overcome this problem, you have to select the spaces and then you can come over to the properties and you can define the space type within the properties. So again, I'll tell it it's an office. And then you quote an occupancy figure. And this is what was missing. Without quoting the occupancy figure, the GBxml export won't work successfully. So quoting the occupancy figure, we can also add property sets just to prove to you that the occupancy figure is already defined. There it is. Okay, so it knows what type of office, it knows the occupancy. So now we'll try the export a second time. Okay, let's overwrite the original file, and now this time everything's fine. So it's an easy thing to miss, but when you export from either of the AutoCAD based versions, you have to quote that occupancy figure. So now what I like to do is to try and show you the same thing, but this time within the Revit. So here I've created a relatively simple building. The reason it's quite simple is for the purposes of this demo, the amount of time that it takes to transfer or to upload to the service is directly related upon, well, first of all, server traffic, but also the model complexity. So typically, if you had, say, an 8 to 12 meg file, that could easily take you an hour or so. So obviously, because we don't have that time here today, we're going to do something relatively simple. Let's start by placing down rooms. So I place down the rooms. And the reason I have the sections here is because in the same way as we had to define occupancy in the AutoCADs, we're going to have to do something similar here within Revit. Under area and volume computations, it's easy to miss, but what you're going to need to do is to click here, area and volume. You want it to calculate the volume. If you don't do this, we're going to receive an error when we try and export to GBxml. So, okay that. Let's have a look at this, this section. Here's my room that I've defined. And as you can see, it's at the moment it's not bounded by the roof. So if I pick the space and just drag the room up, it will be bounded by the space. It wouldn't have done that if we hadn't clicked on computing volumes. So again, that's something that's very easy to miss. So we can take a look at our building, back into our floor plan, and again, that also applies to the second room. So just click on the little grip and drag it up. And it's bounded by the room. So now we're ready to export to GBxml format. So under Export, GBxml, and first of all we get a preview. As we can see, the rooms are now bounded by the roof. We can specify some properties. What type of building is it? It's an office. Where are we located within the world? If we had internet access, it will take us directly to Google Earth, where we can specify our location there, or alternatively we can use the default city list. So that's fine. We can specify a sliver space tolerance. So this is for accuracy of the final result. If there's any space that's less than 305 mil, it's not considered within the calculation. If I take a look at the Details tab, I can then have a detailed view of the makeup of each space. So I can highlight or isolate each individual aspect of the GBxml file. And although there aren't any in this instance, if there were any inaccuracies of the modelling, they would be listed here under gaps. So there'd be a category here for air gaps, and if there were any, excuse me, I need to go back into the model and to take a look. Okay, so next, and then it will give us the ability to export to the GBxml file. Okay, so we've created the two files, one with an AutoCAD-based product, the other with Revit-based product. Now we're ready to actually start using the Green Building Studio. Okay, so I won't bother to save that. Okay, so we're going to do this live for you. So let's take a look. How do we log in? First of all, so you go to the Autodesk website, Autodesk Green Building Studio. If you wish, you can use this for a 30-day free trial, or directly here is where you log in to the server. Very first thing to do, I've obviously already registered, so I'm going to sign in. So I'm invited to type in password. For the purpose of this, I'm going to be somebody called Marie. And it takes me directly into Green Building Studio. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new project. So I'm invited to provide a description. What type of building? So again, obviously this will have a big impact on the end result. And schedule. So how often is the building occupied? So 12 hours a day for 5 days a week. Is this an actual building project or is this a demonstration? Okay, so it will take us through this wizard. That was the first step. The second step is to tell Green Building Studio where we are. So here I'll type in postcode. Is this the correct location? Yep. Okay, and let's just try that again. No, okay, so let's do it, we're in Southampton instead. Okay, does not support service in this country. Okay, let's just go back one, let's just make sure. Building type. Okay, it's a demonstration. Next. So let's select building type. Schedule. It's a demonstration. Let's try that again. Okay, I believe it does accept postcodes. I'm going to try that once more. No, okay, it's not going to. All right, this is interesting. We'll try Southampton again. Okay, no, very interesting. This isn't actually behaving the same way it did previously, but never mind. So find location, and it's actually found, here we are in Southampton. I can zoom out and then specify exactly where I'd be within Southampton. Okay, so for the purposes, that's fine. So next. And is this the right location? Yep, next. Okay, so we're then invited to select the nearest weather station. So it automatically offers the nearest weather stations for us. We can select, and you'll get a preview of the design details for each one. Alternatively, you can ask it to select and load additional weather stations. Okay, so we're doing this live, so bear with us. It may have some difficulty with the upload speed at some time. It's automatically detected the climate zone. So we're in moderate climate here, so it's automatically detected from the weather station that we're in zone B, 4B, but we can modify that if we wish. Okay, so it now knows where we are and it knows which weather location we're using. Next. So now we have to provide some additional details. So which country are we in? Yep, okay, we're in the UK. We're in Hampshire. City, it knows the location, the road, the postcode, which currency, £1 sterling, and then we're invited to specify the costs. So here we can type in the appropriate figures, so 23p per kilowatt for electric, and in terms of fuel costs it quotes therms, so I believe that's approximately £2.60 or so. Next. And it then simply just wants us to confirm that we agree with the terms of use. Okay, so we've entered in the appropriate information within the wizard, and it will then allow me to go, having uploaded, or rather having entered in and created a new project, it will now want me to go and link to the project. So okay, so having uploaded, having created a brand new project, now we're going to need to actually link our GBxml file to that project. So if I select on the project, I'm invited, next steps. If I haven't already, you're going to be invited to download the Green Building Studio desktop client. So this is the piece of software that's going to take your GBxml file and then upload it to the server. In addition, we'll also be able to visualize our GBxml file via a VRML file. So these are the two downloads that it's inviting you to then create. Well, obviously I've already done that, so now let's go to the Green Building Studio desktop. Okay, and again we'll have to log in. Provide a password. So this would be your subscription password. Now to the Green Building Studio desktop, we can now pick on some of the previous projects that we've created. Here I want to create a brand new run. I've created a new project. Now I'm going to create a new run specifying the properties of that project. So the first thing is to link to the previously created GBxml file. So I've pre-prepared this one. Here's the GBxml file. Okay, and then if we scroll down, create a new run. As I say, we're doing this live here, so hopefully upload speeds are going to be such that this is going to be workable. So it's generating the first project for us. Okay, so here we are, having uploaded the GBxml file, having created the first project. Now we get the appropriate properties, values, calculations that the software has automatically created for us. So let's just take a look. First of all, first tab is My Projects. So we get a summary of the building. So it knows where we are. It knows the template file that we've used originally. It knows the size of the building, the type of the building, and it's worked out some, or has the costings that we've already specified. So base run. So the very first thing it's done is determine the annual energy costs and life cycle costs. If you want to find out what it's basing some of these figures on, we have down at the bottom some assumptions. So in this case it's based upon a 30-year life, 30-year building life. annual CO emissions, and it quotes in some of these figures in megajoules as well as kilowatt hours. We have design alternatives, which I'll give you a little demonstration of in a while. And if we come over here, we have annual carbon emissions. So again, we have the potential possibly to create some efficiencies here. To be able to relate to the figures, this is an interesting concept where it quotes how these figures would relate to the running costs of an SUV, and I believe it's every 15,000 miles. So it's 0.3 of an SUV running at 15,000 miles a year, which is an interesting concept, just to give you an appreciation of how that might work. So there's our summary initially. If we work our way down, we have end user charts. So based upon the calculations and the properties that we've already defined, it gives us a visual indication of the annual usage. And we get a more detailed view of that if we wish. So this is really just giving us a statement of the base run before we've made any modifications. Building details and assumptions, so number of people, etc. And also the makeup of the building. So when I created the GBxml file, there were some certain assumptions that were being created in terms of the makeup of the building. If I come up here to project defaults, I can see what assumptions have been, these calculations have been based upon. So if I want to, I will get the opportunity to change some of these. So we can pick something possibly a little bit more energy efficient. Okay, so back to my project, back into the actual details itself. So it's giving us an overview here. So in terms of cost, it's 2,356. Okay, let's drill down back to where we were. So that was all under the first overview, energy and carbon results. That's referred to as the base run. We get some additional details here, say water usage, for example. So it's giving us, again, a baseline calculation. It thinks that there's £776 per year, and it's quoting a figure for litres for water usage. It's based that upon some assumptions, so we can then subsequently modify some of those assumptions and ask it to give us another estimate. So irrigated area, this is just an assumption to start with. This was just a placeholder. So actually, let's give it a different figure. Possibly different figure for the usage. And then maybe we can ask it to estimate once again. So this time, based upon the new criteria that we provided, it comes up with a different result. Photovoltaic analysis. Again, it will do a summary based upon our initial properties that we provided. It will do a calculation of system payback and the installed cost. It will give us a detailed run-through of which surfaces it believes could possibly be used for placement of photovoltaic cells. Weather data, having provided the weather station. And again, I think this is just trying to catch up with us. It will then give us analysis of the weather data. with appropriate data shown. We also get the opportunity to view this visually and cross-reference the properties of each surface based upon the key. So we can pick on an individual surface and it will highlight that surface for us in the appropriate colour based upon whether or not it believes it's a roof or a wall that's pointing north, south, west, east or so. We get the opportunity to change the viewing direction, and you also get some ability to work your way around the building, to visualize the building in different configurations. You should be able to walk around, visualize it. So as you wish to identify different surfaces, you can just better appreciate what it all looks like. So, and here really is the crux of the most useful part of this service: design alternatives. So the software knows that it has a set criteria, and it's calculated, as we said previously, £2,356 annual energy costs. So now we can start playing around with some alternatives and get a feel for possibly, if we make some modifications, if we could make this a more efficient building. And we're going to be able to do that by defining design alternatives. So first of all, under the General tab, we get the opportunity to alter the rotation of the building. We also get the opportunity to define how the building is heated or cooled in a different manner. And then we can go on to lighting, roofing, and then walls, north, south, west and east. So let's make a very simple modification first of all. So if I come to lighting, let's say we have some, we've added some occupancy sensors. So what I'm going to do is going to add in a new description for this revision. So So having named my alternative, I can then add that alternative, and it will add it to the list here. And what it's doing is it's not actually uploaded that, it's not actually submitted that modification. So this is a useful process whereby I can be adding additional modifications, giving them a name, and then actually getting it to run the calculation for us, either individually or as a group. So at the moment this is saying for this modification I've made, waiting submit. So if I then just run that alternative, and I'm going to show you this in real time initially. It's a very simple modification, but as you can see it's now doing a live update. So our base run was £2,356, and now if we take a look, it's done that calculation, and now we're down to 2,301. So simply by adding these occupancy centres, we're getting a more efficient building. We can, at any point, we can select that alternative, and then it will take us back to the detailed analysis that we were looking at earlier on. And here we can say, here's the base run, and here's the design alternative. So we can compare immediately the analysis between the two, very simply. So obviously we have the overall difference in the cost, but also in the usage, etc. So by simply making that one modification, we're able to compare the two different results. And we can work our way back through as many of these different design analyses as we design alternatives as we wish. So let's go back in. Let's pick our GBxml file. Okay, back into projects. So I won't have wanted the design alternatives. Okay, so there's our first alternative. So let's pick on the base run. Oh, sorry, back to where it was. Okay, my projects. It's easy to miss, but having selected button there is create a design alternative. Okay, so let's go back, click on the little tick there, create a design alternative, and it takes us back to that same location. Okay, so possibly another modification here with the roof. So possibly we can start experimenting with different roof construction. So wood frame roof with high insulation. So as we make a modification, it will be identified here. Again, let's work away maybe through walls. Okay, so maybe for the north wall, different modification there. Provide a name. So, roof and more mods. One. Add that as an alternative. And then I don't have to do the run, the alternative now. I can group together several of these alternatives and run actually do the calculation in one hit. But because we're doing it live here, it's probably better to do them individually. So as you can see, very simple building, so server traffic isn't particularly very heavy at the moment, and it's not a complicated model, so quite easy, quite quick. So it's doing the calculations for us. And then at any point, I can delve into one of these modifications. As we're working through these alternatives, we might possibly want to be able to get an overall view of what the differences are between either the design alternatives or possibly completely different models. So we have a concept up here of a dashboard. We have the ability to add and create additional dashboards. So a dashboard is a visual, graphical representation of the differences between projects and between different design alternatives within each project. So I'm going to create a brand new dashboard here. Okay, so having created a new dashboard, I then get the opportunity to add one or more projects to that dashboard. So yes, new dashboard, we'll call it regular. Continue. And then it will give us this graphical representation. So here in terms of energy use, annual costs, we have our two projects, the demo that we've just created. The black triangle there is the base run, and the white triangles will be alternative runs, so alternative design solutions. And these in turn can be compared with completely different projects. And again, this project 2, this had 2 base runs. The one I've just created for you, this has 1 base run with 3 alternatives. And as we work our way through, we'll be able to create and add additional projects to these dashboards. And it just makes it easier to visualize what the differences are between them. If we prefer, we can have that same information listed in terms of text as opposed to graphically. So again, we get a summary of the energy used and the costings. So although this has been a very brief overview of Green Building Studio, hopefully this has given you some sort of idea of potentially what you can do with the system. So what I'd like to do now is, if I open up for questions, and if I can, I will answer them here and now, and if I can't answer them now, I'll find out the answers for you and we'll get back to you. So if I open up the floor now for any questions, hopefully I'll be able to help you. So if you bear with me just a moment, I'll just unmute everybody, and then if there are any questions, just fire away. So I'll let you know when I'm ready. Okay, so everybody is unmuted. So hopefully, if you have any questions, I'll be able to help you. Okay, so anybody with any questions? Can you create your own constructions? Yes, you can. Yes, when you create the GBxml file as part of the model, you have the makeup, the wall styles if it's in architecture or AutoCAD MEP, or the types within Revit, so you can create your own construction. So when you import those over, those properties will be migrated over into Green Building Studio. Hopefully I've unmuted everybody. Hopefully everybody has the ability to ask a question if they wish. But okay, yeah. And then another question: if you export new Revit CA, how can you set up a project template so that my currency and values? Yeah, so I haven't actually explained this, but you do get the ability to set up a pre-configured template initially. So rather than having to quote all these figures each time you do an analysis, you can just quote your appropriate template. So I believe if we click on my project, if we go into a specific project and then project defaults, you get the opportunity to load an individual template. Save the changes or save these to a new template and load a selected template. Unfortunately, I haven't actually created any previously. I hadn't anticipated that, so I haven't actually got any that I can show you here and now. But yes, I can confirm you can pre-create your template, so you don't have to type in this data individually. So would this be configured for building regs minimum requirements? I believe it could, although I'll be perfectly honest with you, I can't confirm that 100%. This is a universal service. It's not specific to any one country, so it doesn't actually know anything specifically about the UK building regs. But like most of these tools, there are properties in there that you can configure that possibly make it comply. But does it know anything about any particular country's building regs? The UK specifically? No, it doesn't. You would have to configure it to make it comply. Okay. Okay, right. Well, if there are no other questions, hopefully that's been of some use for you. You do need to be careful. Just one recommendation, keep it simple. I've deliberately made this a very simplistic building just for the sake of convenience here today. But if you want this to be manageable, you want to be able to try and simplify your project as much as you can. There is a penalty to pay in time, but also I'm not so sure that you'll get a more accurate result the more complicated it will be. There's a certain criteria that the software is looking for, and anything over above that is just adding in a time penalty. Is this software included in the subscription cost? Yes, it is. You are entitled to use this software if you've invested in subscription. So to gain access to this, you simply just type in your subscription password, subscription login and password, and then you can use it directly.